Season's greetings. This is Pat Marsh, your host for the PM Talk Show. We're out here on beautiful Miller Lake, and we want to wish all of the viewers a very happy holiday season this year. And we want you to know that we continue to bring knowledgeable programs about different aspects of things that are happening in the community so that you, the public, will know what is going on, what to look for. And for that cause, today we have with us Miss Osa Betts Williams. She's formerly Child Welfare and Attendance Officer for the Tangipahoa Parish School System. Of course, she's retired now, but we have a lot of things that are happening, and we wanted her to come on and bring some things to your attention so that if you ever need that service, you'll know what to look for. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank
Great.
you. How are you?
Great. Happy holiday season to you.
Thank you so much, and to you and yours as well.
Yeah, and we wanted to bring someone on who has had a lot of experience in this area because a lot of things are happening. So we're going to give the camera to you and let you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with child welfare and attendance.
Okay. I think, first of all, just to let you know that I am a certified child welfare and attendance and visiting school officer. And this is very important when you're talking about the lives of children. I worked for the school system here in Tangipahoa Parish for right at 20 years. And during that time, I did have the opportunity to serve as a hearing officer, doing both Step 5 and 6 hearings, truancy court, and a plethora of other responsibilities when it came to working with children and their families. Mm-hmm. I think it's important also to know that it takes a compassionate heart, even though you have to be firm in the process of doing this work. The most important thing is being knowledgeable. Knowledgeable about the policies, the procedures, the ill effects, the things that you can do to damage a child and his or her entire future. And in that capacity, when I was working, I tried to make sure that the decisions I made were not harmful decisions. Sometimes they were tough decisions, but they were made in a compassionate manner. And I think that's what's happening in our school system. We have people who think that they're only supposed to go by what the policy says and not look at the human aspect of the offenses or infractions that they're dealing with. When you suspend a 4-year-old child from school, the law says you can't do it. I mean, as simple as that, but it's been done. Child welfare and attendance officers now tape conversations during that process, and though I believe that note-taking is important and just really getting to what has to happen and what has happened, and what do we do with this child? What are the holistic problems involving this child? So when you look at child welfare and attendance, it's not just a position, it's a mission. You are an advocate for that child and that child's family, although you work for the school system. And I think that's what's gotten lost in the process of doing these due process hearings. Now, the one thing I can tell you that I know that, and just looking at one of the forms that I have that I pulled from the Tangipahoa Parish School System's webpage, it is a Louisiana Department of Education school behavior report for Tangipahoa Parish. And it's changed tremendously from what the typical Step 6 hearing form normally looked like in the past. I can't say for sure that this is what is being used on a continuous basis, but there are 5 sections to it. And it concerns me as a person who is very familiar with child welfare and attendance, because this is just too much information. And I recall the days that when I looked at uh, the, I can't remember the name of the show. I remember this morning, but anyway, the guy was Jack Friday, and it was a detective show. And he would often say, "Just the facts," you know. And I believe that that's what we're missing now, is just the facts. When an infraction is committed or an offense is committed by a student or an employee, I think there's too much unnecessary information compiled in those reports when you need just the facts. Because if a teacher writes it out, or another school staff person or a bus driver, they go by this form. And the form is very deceptive in the choices that you can make. I look at the disrespect for authority. I totally agree that students are at school to learn, teachers are at school to teach. Teachers are overwhelmed by all of these other things that they have to do, but students are also overwhelmed. And with that being said, I believe that, you know, we need to get back to just the facts, because the administrator is going to look at that report.
Okay, now you mentioned there are 6 steps of which I know that a child must go through. The first 5 steps before they are expelled. So can you tell what each one of those first 5 steps are and how serious it is before it gets to the 6th one? Or can they go straight to a step 6 hearing? I understand if they kill somebody, if they bring drugs and all that, knives and all that, I can understand that. But what about somebody chewing a piece of gum and the child is asked to take the gum out of the mouth? Child doesn't do it. Person that's telling them don't know that the child is a type 2 diabetic, and her sugar dropped.
Right.
And she couldn't take the gum out, or else she could have, you know, people with diabetes, they know if you have, if you don't lift your sugar level, you can have go into a coma, you can have a heart attack, all that bad stuff can happen.
And then you have the problem with ketoacidosis that a lot of people don't know about with diabetics.
But, yeah.
And especially with juvenile diabetics. So I think that we have packaged too many things in the school system when it concerns our students as well as personnel. You know, there is no more acting outside of the box. Everything is so rigorous and straightforward that it doesn't lend for administrative, well, I'm going to take that back, because it does lend for administrative decision making no matter what the infraction is. If you know a child has a disabling condition, and what I think I've said on this show before is that with the 504 student, I mean, I could be a 504 student if I'm in school because of a particular disability or disabling situation that I have, including hypertension. You know, so there are certain things that I must do in order to keep that particular illness in check, or it can be a problem.
And that's what I wanted to bring you to. Rather than knowing what the problem is with the child before you go straight to a step 6 hearing and saying, oh, you're just being disrespectful because you won't take the gum out, nor will you allow me to explain why the gum is in my mouth. What are some of the things that they could have done to keep the child from being put out of school?
Well, first of all, as an administrator, educator, or staff professional, you need to know that child's medical history.
Right.
Because it's very important that you understand why a child behaves the way they do. We've always discussed relatedness. You know, ADHD child or ADH child, you know, will have behaviors that are different than what we call an average child. Now, you know, I've always questioned this term normal, because I don't know if there is a true definition of normal, but these children have behaviors that lend to certain have illnesses that lend to certain behaviors. So if you're not aware of what those behaviors are before going into a hearing, whether it's a parent-student conference with the administrators, or whether it's a Step 5 hearing, which is basically a warning hearing before the Step 6, or even if it's a Step 6 hearing, you need to know the facts. You need to know what might have triggered this child. We have one young man that we're working with right now who cannot tolerate being yelled at. His tolerance level for certain interactions is very low. So that child has a special need. And if there are people who are working with that child who does not understand that special need, then that child is always going to be in trouble.
Right.
And it has happened.
So when you look at these types of things that are going on, what would you suggest to the people who are working in child welfare and attendance now?
First of all, first and foremost, I would recommend that they all become certified.
Right.
Because you can go to these little classes and you can go to these workshops and you can learn some things about child welfare and attendance. You can have all of these, what they call them, professional days, such as the one that I copied off the web page that was held in October of 2015. And based on this agenda, they had a 504 special education procedures section. There was a family in needs of service section, code, behavior health, and Lighthouse Community Care, coordinated system of care and new beginnings behavior health care, question and answer section. So this doesn't tell me what exactly am I supposed to do? How exactly am I supposed to handle these situations?
Right.
And it ended with Department of Child and Family Services. Now, when you put all of these agencies together, and I've worked for most of them in some strange way or another over my career, each has its own distinct responsibility when it comes to a child and its family. And some are more hands-on with the child and family, some goes through the school system in order to get referrals. And I just believe that there needs to be more cohesion and more things that the system will be able to do in order to make sure that the family is getting adequate and full services.
Okay, well, we're going to break now, and when we come back for part 2, one of the things that we want to talk about is due process. Parents need to know that. We're going for a break, and we'll be right back.
Look at this guy. What are you gonna do, kid? Go home. It's hopeless. Yeah, dude, do something with your life. Leave. You're looking stupid, man. Give it up.
Welcome back to the PM Talk Show. This is Pat Marsh, your host, and we're out here with Mrs. Osabetz Williams, who's formerly with Child Welfare and Attendance from the Tangipahoa, retired from the Tangipahoa Parish School System. And before the break, we were talking about some of the problems that is foreseen now as happening with Child Welfare and Attendance. But one of the things that I would really like you to explain to the parents of children, what are due process rights and what must be done before they go to a Step 6 hearing?
Well, Pat, I must admit that I've tried to keep up with what's going on with the system, with what's going on in the state of Louisiana as far as policies and procedures are concerned. And as you know, I speak frequently with people at the State Department of Education.
Right.
And it just appears that there are so many inconsistent things that are going on because, and when I say inconsistent, the Department of Education is telling me something that they are responsible for developing
Right.
and passing it on down to the schools. But at the same time, they're saying that the school systems, the superintendent and his staff maintain the right to make certain decisions based on their system,
As long as,
they follow the core
okay.
policies. So what I'm seeing, and again, I refer back to this form, what I see is happening is that there are things that are going on that are not necessarily fair and equitable when it comes to the due process procedure. Now, I know that normally step one, you know, you have a teacher warning. Step two, you may have some consequence. Step three,
Such as,
the child may be put in timeout, or
okay.
the teacher may take away certain privileges. You know, there are so many things that they use in the system now that it's really hard to keep up with exactly what those options are. Step three, as I can recall, is another warning with the parent involvement. Step four, you may be suspended for so many days. Step five is a serious hearing where the parent, the administrator, and normally a child welfare and attendance officer is in the room together to try to work out some things. Now, my problem with that is they have a program within the entire system where they can find out everything they need to know about this child for the most part. And I don't think I am out of order by saying that it's a program that I recall as being what's called JPAM.
Right.
And it's there. All you have to do is go back and look. If you're a child welfare and attendance staff person, just go back and look at the child's history. And another thing that we need to remember is that that child's behavior infractions are not supposed to follow them from one year to the next.
And I'm glad you said that because we are, in AACP, we're seeing a lot of that now.
Too much of it.
Too much, some going back as far as when they were in pre-K.
Exactly.
And you bringing it forward. And I'm
Exactly.
knowing you can't do that from year to year. You're not supposed to.
And even with this 4-year-old who was in pre-K that we talked about earlier, I was told that the infraction, even though it could be considered serious, but when you think about a 4-year-old, how serious can it get? I mean, I know that there are some 4-year-olds who probably can do some serious harm, but in this particular case, there was no intent, there was no malice. I mean, but the child was told that being a preschooler, 4-year-old pre-K student, that what's on her record will follow her through 12th grade. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
And it's against the law, by the way.
Right.
Because we did check with the U.S. Department of Education as well as the U.S. Justice Department. And I think that if the school system will just stop and listen to people who are knowledgeable in these areas versus people that they just put there to do the job and who have not been certified. And I can tell you, going through that process in an accredited university where I was cross-registered between Southern University and Southeastern Louisiana University, teachers are being sent out with no training in any of these areas. The training that I received for child welfare and attendance and visiting teacher was rigorous. You had to know law. You had to not only know school and state law, but you also had to know the juvenile justice law.
Right.
And all of this plays into how you treat a child and what you're allowed to do with them. When you get to step 6, that's a in-house decision to some degree also. Depending on the infraction, the child can be put out of school for up to 2 semesters, 1 semester, or some weeks. The child could even be homeschooled. It depends on the child's ability level. If it's a special ed student, or if it's a child with some other disabling or related condition, there could be other options. But a step 6 hearing does not always mean that the child has to be expelled from school.
Right.
So parents need to know that even with the step 6 hearing, they have the privilege of appeal. They have the privilege of appeal. And you can get an appeals letter after you report what the situation is from the central office.
Well, I want to dovetail on what you said, because I'm thinking of a student that was sent to Crystal Street. He has a speech impediment, but when he got to the 9th grade, they took him out of the program. And as a result of him not getting that speech therapy, then kids began to laugh at him because he stuttered really bad. Didn't mean he was a smart child, but that caused him to give up.
Right.
And as a result of it, we got with then Principal Miss Marilyn Dunn, and ladies and gentlemen, this child had fallen 2 years behind based on how he had been treated. And as a result of that, we got with Miss Dunn, and they had summer school, and he turned 2 years. He completed 2 years in 4 months, and he passed with good grades. And we felt that he had to be moved from the environment of the school where he was. So I called Miss Rhea Mars, who was the principal at that time at La Ranger, and I explained the situation, and I asked her if she would take him under her wing, she and her staff, and she did. This child is now a model student. He is an honor roll student. He's playing football. He's out of those cracks because he was under the cracks when we met him, and he's doing fine. His sister, his brother is there. They're all honor roll students. So just a big shout out to Miss Mars and to Miss Marilyn Dunn, because for the work that they did, because they could see. And these are the types of things that we NAACP have to fight in making sure that a child's rights are protected, because if the child, especially if it's a special needs child, that one child can shut the system down with funding until they're accommodated. Am I right about that?
You're right, because as I understand it, our system lost money several or so years ago.
Yes.
Federal monies because of infractions that they committed
Right.
by not serving a certain child
Right.
to the degree that they were supposed to.
Right.
So there's a lot of money at stake. I would hate to see our system lose any money, because we're already having this struggle, as I understand it, to make sure that our schools are continuously functioning adequately and at an adequate level, getting all of the supplies and the equipment that's needed for schools in order to better educate our children.
Okay. As we're closing, because we're almost out of time, if you can just talk about, or just let the people know about revised statute 17221, to let them know where to go and look up the law for school attendance.
Okay, you can go to the Tangipahoa Parish School System's website and go to departments, and then go to child welfare and attendance, and scroll through all of the options that they have. There's something called, well, for the state, it's Charter School Performance Compact Truancy. Now, this is not just
Now, is this
upfront.
something that public schools can use too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you can also find the forms that we were talking about. Revised Statute 17221 is School Attendance Reference Guide for Child Welfare and Attendance. And the other one is Act 861, which is the Anti-Bullying Act. Now, there is another act, 171, that was passed, I think, in 1986 for safe and drug-free schools and communities. I don't know whatever happened with this act. I will dare say that it is not being used to any degree within the school system at this time. But if you will surf the Tangipahoa Parish School System's website and look for programs that involve children, such as 504 and child welfare and attendance, you can get a great deal of information. You will be able to help your child. And I am all for building community coalitions. Parents, you have the right to build a support group that will not only help your child, but other children within the community.
Right.
So I strongly advocate that. If you need any services from me, please feel free to call me. My number will be at the bottom of the screen, hopefully by airing of this program, and it's 985-974-4453.
Right. And we want to thank you for coming, and we hope that you and all of my viewing audience will have a very blessed holiday season. Keep doing what you're doing because our kids need you. They need all of us. You have been an asset to the NAACP and a lot of what we struggle to make things right for kids. So publicly, thank you for that.
Thank you, and you all have a very Merry Christmas and a blessed and prosperous New Year.
Yes,
You too, Pat.
thank you. And this is Pat Marsh, your host, saying thank you for continuing to join the PM Talk Show. And this elephant is being eaten one bite at a time because our kids, our greatest assets, are in need right now. And if we as adults don't do it, who will? Thank you for continuing to join us. Remember that knowledge is powerful. Knowledge does matter. Have a blessed holiday season. Thank you, and God bless.